correspondent. So let's talk to Lewis Oakley, who's, it says here, bisexual writer and father. I'm sure you're many, many other things.
Many things.
So help me out here, because you are, it says father, so you are in a relationship with a woman, you're engaged, and you have children.
3 children, a 13-year-old stepson, a daughter who's 2, and a son who's 4 months old, so I don't sleep.
Is there, forgive, I don't want to ask clumsy questions, so you're going to have to tell me if I'm
ask all the clumsy questions you want, that's why I'm here. All right,
so I see you walking down the high street, and you've got a beautiful woman on your arm, and you've got 3 children, and I say, there goes a straight man, right?
Yep.
Am I wrong to think that?
Well, yeah, but it's not really your fault, is it? I think this is the problem. We are such a visual species. So, if you saw me walking down the street today, you would look at me and think, straight guy. If you'd have saw me 8 years ago walking hand in hand with my ex-boyfriend, you thought, gay guy. So there's always been this issue with visibility and bisexuality, that people don't see bisexuality. And so then they think it doesn't exist. They think you're just confused, or you're, on your way to being gay. And it is an issue with the visuality of it that people have a problem with.
If a person is straight, and I'm going to go for the straight man proposes to his girlfriend, and they're going to get married, and at that point the straight man says, right, that's it for me, it's this woman for the rest of my life. Okay, so there's a closing of doors there, if you want to think about it. Is it the same way for a bisexual man, where you've proposed to a woman, you're going to get married, we know that, you say, that's it for me, it's this woman for the rest of my life, and no men?
Yeah, well,
that's it.
For me, obviously, monogamy and non-monogamy is something that happens, for gay people, straight people, bi people. That's a different thing. If we're talking about me, that's what happened.
Right.
It's, I've dated men, I've dated women. I happen to have fallen in love with this amazing person who happens to be a woman. That's it. It doesn't mean that my hormones have turned off, though. Just like the married straight man who sees attractive women walking past on the street and is like, oh, but, would never think of acting on it or having an affair. It's the same thing for me. It's, that I see attractive men and women all around the place, and it's like, oh, hot, but, I'm taken, and that's it.
This is my naivety, wondering whether you could argue that as a bisexual person, you do need to run both tracks simultaneously. So alongside your marriage to a woman, you would need to have male relationships as well.
Well, some bisexuals may feel that way, but a big chunk don't. I think the majority are in, sort of monogamous relationships. And it's, I always say, if the relationship you're in is fulfilling and great, then you don't really need to look anywhere else. It's, and obviously, that dating a man is a little bit different to dating a woman, but I think it's about saying, as anyone would if they're straight or gay, it's like, look, there are always other options on the line. There are different kinds of body shapes that you might be interested in or whatever it is, but you've made the choice to stick with this one person, and that's it. So it's not really that different.
I gather one of the annoying misunderstandings is that people think that a bisexual person is attracted to everyone.
I know, as if I have the time. I would say, as a bisexual person, I'm actually attracted to less people than gay and straight people. I think I'm more picky. Yes, I'm attracted to different genders, but probably only about 1% of each. Whereas, you talk to some straight guys, and it's probably about 80% of women they find attractive. So I would say it's yes, there is a different array of genders I might be attracted to, but that doesn't mean it's every single person. That'd be exhausting.
Because when I was talking to our correspondent there, I obviously did the classic thing of getting tangled up between sex and gender. So I said that it's not just bisexual. You've now got gender fluid, gender queer, cisgender, agender, and she said, well, no, this is not the same thing. But it does have an impact, doesn't it? Because if you're bisexual, you've now got not just male and female to choose from. We're told we've got 99 genders. Does that create additional problems?
I don't think so. I mean, it's just, bisexuality, it's attracted to more than one gender. So it might not be that you're attracted to all 99 of the genders. But I don't think creates an issue. It's just about, meeting someone that you like and they identify in a certain way, and then that's fine.
And so, because the way you talk about it, Lewis, it sounds so sort of obvious and natural. I'm wondering why, if we go back, say, 30 years, you very rarely heard the word bisexual. In fact, we basically only ever heard it in connection with David Bowie.
Yeah, well, I think this is odd, and, I'm 31 now. So growing up in the 90s, never really hearing the word bisexual or bisexuality, it was hard for me when I kind of came into my sexuality and being like, well, what does this mean? Am I gay? Am I straight? Am I drunk? And then kind of figuring out, no, you're bisexual. This is a totally valid thing. It's a normal thing to feel. And now we find out it's, the second most common sexuality.
Well, that's right. You're going up the charts here.
So here we go.
Yeah.
off the charts.
What about, I was just going to say, sorry to break in, that it sounds as if with boomers, and by that I mean people who were born the year before me, 1964 or earlier, that boomers are quite straitjacketed in how they see themselves. Is that fair?
I don't think so. I mean, there's only so much you can get from surveys, right? So I, for context, have been writing about bisexuality in the mainstream and doing interviews like this for about 5 years now. And whenever I do a big national piece, I will always be inundated with emails. And it is usually older bisexuals. It's usually people over 40. And, that it's always the same thing, married, mortgage, kids, thought they were bisexual when they were younger, but because of the world they lived in, were like, well, I better just hide this now. And then they wake up in this more progressive world and they're like, actually, could I be accepted for bisexuality? Can I tell my wife now? Does my wife love me, or does she love the straight character I've been playing all these years? So, and some of them are like, well, I'm just going to carry on as I plan to and take this to my grave. Or some of them are like, you know what, actually, I want to be the real me and talk about it. And that doesn't mean I want to cheat on my wife. It doesn't mean I want to be with men. It just means that I want to be open and honest about who I am and the attractions I have. So I know the stats make it look like, it's, this is a young thing. I don't think it is. I think that people were just raised in a certain way where it's like, this is not acceptable. And if it's going to be really hard to be gay, and if it's perceived as though bisexuals, well, you could just be attracted to women and that kind of thing, that people just made, choices that they had to make at the time. And now, as I say, they've woken up in this progressive world and now they're questioning it. So I suspect it's more, but, I don't have the data to back it up.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Nice to talk to you and to meet you. Lewis Oakley, writer, father. Talking about being bisexual, which is now the second most